Thank you so much for coming. Welcome, everyone. Trustees, supporters, alumni, students. We appreciate you all gathering this evening for our Founders Day celebration and the celebration of the successful completion of exceeding our campaign goal for our Liberty and Leadership campaign. Since most of you hopefully are holding champagne glasses, I'm going to offer a little toast to begin the evening. So if you'll join me. To the memory of TFAS Founders, to their wisdom and foresight, let's toast. To the mission of developing leaders, our true and everlasting guidepost. Raise your glass to our campaign just completed, to the teachers and students we teach, to the values of liberty and justice, and to greater milestones now onward we reach. Hear, hear. Well, following the great, outstanding 50th anniversary celebration we held in late 2017, the Board of Trustees of the Fund for American Studies undertook a strategic evaluation and established 5 important initiatives that would accelerate our growth, extend our reach, and deepen our impact. We announced a comprehensive goal of raising $25 million over 2 years to fund 5 initiatives. Those are to create a Leadership Scholars Program, to combat economic ignorance, to enrich and expand our programs, to further engage our alumni network, and of course, to sustain important existing programs. Under each of these 5 initiatives, we had a number of specific programs that we wanted to fund. The programs covered all aspects of what we refer to as the TFAS journey, extending from high school through college undergraduates to law students to young professionals. I'm pleased to announce that we exceeded our goal. In just a moment or two, I'm going to introduce 3 alumni who were beneficiaries of support for these initiatives. We limited it tonight to 3 beneficiaries, 3 short testimonials in the interest of time, but we could have lined up hundreds, even thousands of others to come talk about their transformational TFAS experience. Let me first ask you to consider a few ways that I think TFAS is so important in the world we inhabit today. TFAS and our campaign, of course, was about liberty and leadership. TFAS provides a place where people who see the world through different lenses can come together and talk and consider the ideas and the institutions that best promote human flourishing. TFAS gives students the opportunity to consider how we can defeat poverty with liberty and ensure that all of God's children have the chance to use their skills, talents, and abilities to the fullest. With freedom seemingly in retreat around the world, including in the U.S., TFAS is steadfast in providing a classroom where students can undertake a balanced examination of American history and the economic ideas and civic virtues that sustain our republic and unite us as one people endowed by our Creator with inalienable rights. We seek nothing less than to help young people rediscover those self-evident truths that sustain the American experiment in liberty. Now let me introduce 3 people to offer short reflections. Before I do so, I'm told that some of the students from our capital semester program are here. I'd like those students who are going to be in our class of 2020 to please stand so we can see where you are and people have an opportunity to meet you later. Please remain standing. And I'm going to ask other alumni who are here to join you in standing as well. So any alums of TFAS programs, Novak and Rago Fellows, please stand. Someone on my staff told me that between the current students and the alumni who are here tonight, We have represented in this room 6 decades of TFAS students. That's just remarkable. So wonderful. Wow. Well, unfortunately, I think your program says Edgar Velasquez is going to speak. He called today with the flu. He hasn't been to Asia, but we told him not to come. But in his place, Charisma Hunter, on very short notice, agreed to join us tonight, so we're grateful to her. Charisma was is a graduate of Virginia Tech, but when she was a student at Virginia Tech, she attended one of our programs in Prague in the Czech Republic and was selected then to be a leadership scholar for our U.S. program here in Washington, D.C. And that program, the Leadership Scholars Program, which was supported in our campaign very generously, offers not only a full scholarship to our program here, but a year-long opportunity to attend seminars and programs, some virtual, some in person. After Charisma, we will hear from Melanie Bennett, Activism Associate at the Institute for Justice. Melanie has participated in several TFAS programs, most recently our Public Policy Fellows program that during the campaign was rebooted and is just an outstanding program now for young professionals. Melanie is a graduate of the University of Louisiana Lafayette. And third up will be Matthew King. Matthew is currently serving as our Joseph Rago Fellow for Excellence in Journalism at the Wall Street Journal. He's a graduate of Duke University and spent a year studying in Paris, and he is one of our now 6 Novak or Rago Fellows working on the opinion pages at the Wall Street Journal. I like to say we're creating the next generation of people who will be writing the editorials and overseeing the op-eds at the Wall Street Journal for many years and decades to come. So we'll start with Charisma, then we'll hear from Melanie, and then Matthew. Thank you.
It is an honor to be standing in front of all of you on this cold, rainy day here in the nation's capital. As a participant in the Prague and DC program, there are numerous reasons why I'm grateful and appreciative of the Fund for American Studies. But since I'm positive that you all don't want to hear me speak all night, I'm going to key in on one of the incredible opportunities that TFAS has to offer, and that is the Leadership Scholars Program. I'm from Wise County, Virginia, which is nestled in the most southwestern area of the state. Given that it's isolated, opportunities are scarce. However, whether if it was monetary reasons or deprivation of opportunities, I never wanted any barrier or restrictions to interfere with my ability to work hard and become successful. Graduating in 3 years from Virginia Tech, I was a bit anxious during my last semester as I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do with my future. Law school, wait a year, international aid work in DC. Well, obviously I chose the latter, but it was not a simple decision. The deciding factor, though, was receiving an email from Melissa and Josh notifying me that I was accepted into the Leadership Scholars Program. At that moment, I did not know how to react because so many unanswered questions were then answered. I knew that it wouldn't be possible for my family to pay for tuition and send me to DC to take part in such an amazing program, and that becoming a leadership scholar was the only way. Last summer, as a leadership scholar, was an outstanding experience, as it enhanced my skills as a young professional. From the White House tours to attending networking events, it truly provided me with a firm foundation to jumpstart my legal career. My internship at the United States fashion industry, the courses at George Mason University, and the constant dialogue that I have with my peers provided me with the apparatus to be successful. I'm a firm believer in that experience truly matters. The countless positive encounters that I had last summer are invaluable. Reading textbooks, looking at PowerPoint slides, and listening to lectures can only offer so much, but it's when you encounter and fully undergo such experiences that it all truly begins to set in and occur to you. You begin to realize that you can truly accomplish everything that you dreamed of as a child, and you can truly make a substantial difference. I'm thankful that the Leadership Scholars Program paved the way for just the beginning of my legal career here in Washington, D.C., and I'm excited to continue embracing the countless opportunities that are given to me and the multiplicity and alluring attributes of Washington, D.C. I thank this reputable and distinguished organization, for equipping me to be able to do what I love and go beyond what was ever expected of a young, first-generation college graduate from Southwest Virginia. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane, for asking me, and thank you for TFAS for having me. I was asked to talk about the Public Policy Fellowship and my experiences there. I know that I've had limited time, so I've limited to 3 main points of why I loved it. There were so many things, but there are 3. First and foremost, remember this: a fellowship is a friendship for nerds. So think about that for a second. That's exactly what it is. It's a greatest means for friendship for the nerdiest of us. The bookworms have a time set apart once a month. I can tell you I looked forward to that day every month where I could sit there, put all of my personal and professional obstacles aside, not think about any of the papers for work or memos or policy briefings or any of those things. I could sit there in a room and talk about the Lincoln-Douglas debates. I hope you're salivating as much as we were. It was so exciting, and that's one of the reasons why I love the Public Policy Fellowship the most, is that you can sit there and talk about things that are big picture items, not the everyday detailed things you're working all the time. We sat there and thought about the experience of self-government, and that's a really beautiful thing. The second most important is the actual friendships that you make, and they were especially helpful for me. Megan was a fellow of mine, and now we talk at least monthly about all the juicy things going down at the Hill. Sydney, who is here, right here, she invited me to her engagement party, and we also did a lovely ladies' tea at the Willard. Very expensive, but also very lovely. Brenda, the director, is actually one of my very best friends as well. We talk about just as much philosophy as we do about relationship issues, so that's great. But another special friendship was also one where Michael, who graduated from Hillsdale, which means that he's obviously a very lover of founding fathers, sent me a handwritten letter on paper that probably came from the American Revolution, was stamped with his initials in red Kingley, paper stamped, and it was just saying, "Hey, I hope you're doing well." In the most cursive, it was just, so if that's not nerdy friendship, I don't know what is, really. So you have the friendship and the nerdiness, and then also, just last but not least, food and fun. You wouldn't be here if you didn't enjoy a really good time with fellowship and fun activities, and we had so many. One of my favorite memories was going to Gettysburg. We had so much fun, and the professor there is a Lincoln scholar who I think read everything that was ever written on Lincoln, and he looked just like Fraser Crane, which made it even better. We had a scholar who came from Hillsdale again, who read all of Alexis de Tocqueville's Democracy in America, and in the fellowship, he actually could sit there, book closed, and cite the page, the paragraph number, and what it said, which still flabbergasts me to this day. So overall, the fellowship was just remarkable because we could sit there and talk about things that are greater than ourselves. We can make friends that last a lifetime, and we could have a great time doing it. So I hope that you get to find those things in your everyday life. And if you're my age or around that, apply for the Public Policy Fellowship.
All right, good evening, everyone. We have a lot to celebrate tonight. It's Founders Day. TFAS has concluded a very successful 50th anniversary campaign, and more than $800,000 has been raised for the Joseph Rago Memorial Fellowship to fully endow it. So we are well on our way to fully funding it. I also want to recognize the remarkable TFAS alumni network. You were all an inspiration. I would be remiss if I didn't recognize the alumnus who inspires me the most on a daily basis, Elliot Kaufman, the inaugural Rago Fellow and current Assistant Editorial Features Editor at the Wall Street Journal. Now, Elliot couldn't be here tonight, but I wanted to tell a story about him. He recently wrote a piece on Senator Bernie Sanders for the Journal that I think captures what the Rago Fellowship and TFAS are all about. So Elliot was arguing that Senator Sanders is not as consistent in his views as his supporters say he is. To support this, Elliot dug through Senator Sanders' past statements and found some extreme positions that he no longer espouses, like a call for public ownership of utilities from 1976. But no sooner was Elliot's piece published on Sunday than the front page of Politico read, "Power to the people. Bernie calls for federal takeover of electricity production." Coincidence? I think not. Maybe Elliot needs to remind Senator Sanders of his past support for Second Amendment rights. So I'm excited to go to work every single day because I think the Rago Fellowship is the best job in the whole world. And as an editor, I get to work, as Joe Rago did, with the very best people in the business, people like Dan Henninger, Walter Russell Mead, and Peggy Noonan. And as a writer, I get to call attention to the stories that the media might otherwise miss. Stories like the threat of ethnic conflict in Ethiopia and the remarkable life of a soldier who fought for Germany in World War I and for Britain in World War II. So thank you all for your support. Thank you for ensuring that as long as we have eyes to see and ears to hear the good news from the Wall Street Journal, there will always be a Rago Fellow there.
Just a little background. As most of you may know, Joe Rago was a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist on the editorial pages of the Wall Street Journal. He won the Pulitzer Prize for his coverage of the Affordable Care Act, and he died suddenly in his sleep at the age of 34. And his father, who you saw on the screen with Matthew, and mother and friends and family wanted to establish this fellowship, and we got contacted by the Wall Street Journal about whether we wanted to help administer it, and we were honored, and they're wonderful. Joe's parents, Paul and Nancy Rago, are wonderful people, and we're thrilled to be the stewards of the scholarship fund. In addition to the $800,000 for endowment we've raised several $100,000 in annual support that we can't put in the endowment, but it helps fund the fellowship on an annual basis, so we don't have to tap the endowment yet as we build it up. So we are committed to making sure this lasts for many years to come and is permanent. So, and honored to keep Joe's memory alive. And the Leadership Scholars Program that Charisma talked about is funded by a number of donors who committed to this to ensure that we could recruit really outstanding students like Charisma. And we select 25 every year for this Leadership Fellowship program that Charisma was part of. And then we have separate programs for students interested in international affairs and from North Carolina and others that are getting full scholarships. And we can proactively identify them and bring them to our program and hopefully help them transition into careers in leadership. I do just want to say, in addition to these three programs you heard about, we retooled our program for law students during the campaign with a large grant that has enabled us to provide fellowships to all the students. Professor Jeremy Rabkin from Scalia Law is here, who teaches constitutional law to those students. They do an economics component and have great fellowships while they're here. And that retooled program got underway last summer, and we've already got we had 16 fellows last summer, and we've had over 50 applications already for this summer, and we are going to increase it to at least 25 fellows. And we've hit record enrollment in our programs for high school students last year, so we're growing in all areas, but at least you heard from 3 of our alumni. The success of this campaign wouldn't have been possible without the support of many donors funding our annual campaign, as well as making special gifts for this Liberty and Leadership campaign. It took very hard work by the TFAS staff, including our development team and all those who make things happen at the Fund for American Studies. So I'd really like to recognize my colleagues I work with every day who do a lot of hard work to accomplish our mission. So could my fellow staff members please stand so we can recognize you and thank you. Thank you. Right up front here is Xander Archuleta, whose wife gave birth to a baby in December, and a few weeks later he headed down to Santiago, Chile to oversee our program in Santiago for students from Latin America. So that's the kind of dedication we have on our staff, or a desire to get more sleep maybe. So I also want to offer a special thanks to two other people who are here. Mike Brody and Christine Owens from BCC Associates. They were the consultants you need on a campaign to help you do a feasibility study to figure out how to position things, what initiatives might appeal to donors, how to structure every aspect of it. So Mike Brody and Christine Owens, who are here, thank you for your help along the way. Now I'd like to invite a dear friend and a strong supporter of our programs to the stage, Freda Levy. Freda, along with her husband, don't get up yet, have been generous supporters of TFAS and our work and a number of our annual operating initiatives. She's really committed through the Fund for American Studies and other organizations she supports to preserving and extending individual freedom and human dignity through all the work that she does. And we're honored to have her as a donor to the Fund for American Studies. She has been helping us in particular with a new initiative that we got started last summer that is really taken off, and it's a remarkable thing. I assume she'll be talking about it, so I'm not going to say anything more about that, but it's really, she thinks very strategically and in terms of how you can effectively reach young people, because you have to be strategic when you do that if you want your message to get across, to penetrate, to have an impact and be transformational. So please join me in welcoming Freda Levy to the stage.
Thanks, Roger. I was really happy when he asked me to speak. And I understood Roger's commitment to free speech when I said to him, so I can say anything, right, Roger? There was a gulp, let me tell you. But as Roger said, we support a lot of organizations. And the thing that distinguishes TFAS to me is the leadership. And, you know, there's a lot of ways people look at leadership. Like Jack Welch says, good business creates a vision, articulates a vision passionately. You know, a lot of cliche, a lot of gibberish. Or you have Bill Gates. Leadership needs to provide strategy and direction and give tools, you know, all kinds of jargon. That's not the, I mean, yes, TFAS has vision. Yes, TFAS gives tools. But what I think distinguishes TFAS is something Steve Covey said. And Steve Covey wrote 7 Habits of a Highly Effective People. And he said, effective leadership is putting first things first. Effective management is discipline, carrying it out. Affirmation or vision without discipline is the beginning of delusion. And this, the putting first things first, this doing what you gotta do, exemplifies Roger and Steve. And because of that, you see, they're constantly developing new programs. And they have a huge array. I don't want to say diversity because that wouldn't describe what they have. They have a huge array of programs, which lets TFAS attract students with all types of issues. And because of this, there is, as you, Steve, said, as Roger said, they have almost 350 students will be in DC this summer. They'll have, I think it's 75 in Hong Kong, and I can't see my notes, 120 in Prague. And when I hear that, you know what I think? Helicopter parents' children. And they have them, and they bring them here year after year without incident. In fact, all of these students leave the TFAS program no longer needing their helicopter parent and able to really exemplify the wisdom of liberty that they have learned. And in addition, one of the things I've always admired is how TFAS rolls with the punches. When they lost their ability to house the students at Georgetown, they didn't miss a beat. They just went to GMU and reestablished the whole program. When the Foundation for Teaching Economics said, "Would you please adopt us?" they got out the adoption papers and they brought them in and managed them. And I've seen this high quality management time and again. And that's why when I had a project and I brought it to Roger, and I will give Roger credit, he often recognizes talent when I walk in the room. But this is a project, you know, we hear a lot about how the college students are succumbing to the belief that somehow socialism is going to solve problems. And we knew we had to counter this. And so we went out, we found two, one of our guys is in the room, we found two young men who are from Venezuela. They had fought in the liberty movement in Venezuela, and they are now here. They were seeking asylum. I'm happy to say I don't know if it's finalized, but they're now able to work in America. But wasn't just enough to have two Venezuelan students go out and say, "Let us tell you how horrible things are in Venezuela." We knew if we were going to capture audiences, we had to have really well-trained speakers with really high-quality PowerPoints. And so we invested with Christy Kendall in training these students, and Roger and Steve and we sat through iteration after iteration. I know I should feel sorry for the speakers, but I'm kind of thinking of me on this one. But these speakers don't go out, yes, they talk about Venezuela. They talk about the massive poverty and the hunger. They talk about how medicine isn't available, how you walk around in fear because gangs have been empowered by the Maduro administration. But they're not there to talk about Venezuela. They say to the audience, "Do you want to know how Venezuela came to this state? They promised us free health care. They promised us free college." And they explain, they go back in history and show that Chavez was not the problem. Chavez was the result of the problem. The problem happened years before, as they built up social program after social program, and when they realized they could no longer fund them and tried to turn them around, there were massive riots in Venezuela. And that was the start of the decline. They kept trying to fund those programs by confiscating more and more from the private sector. And they are here, our two speakers are here to help students understand that those socialist promises quickly lead to Venezuela. And I am thrilled because they are speaking around the country. The schedule is just filling up. But still, I think if you guys have a venue, we might have an opportunity, right? So I want to thank Roger for seeing this as Roger and Steve. You know, I didn't realize Steve had a job before I asked him to do this, Steve Slattery. Now he has two, though. So how good is that? God bless America. Anyway, I want to extend my thanks to Roger, Steve, and the whole TFAS staff for helping more and more students understand how important liberty is to having the life we have here. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we have Andres and Jorge booked for about 50 talks in the next, just in the remaining months of the spring semester between now and the end of April, and we've got more and more requests coming in all the time. They've doing radio interviews now. We've had some articles written about them, so it's great. Andres, why don't you stand up and we'll recognize you there. Thank you. Now I'm going to ask our chairman of our board, Randy Teague, to come forward and for the next portion of our program. Thank you for your support, Randy.
February the 6th, that's today, is of course the anniversary of the founding in 1967 of an organization called the Charles Edison Youth Fund, named after Charles Edison, Governor of New Jersey, Secretary of the Navy, and Thomas Edison's son. After he died, we became the Charles Edison Memorial Youth Fund, and then in 1986, we became the Fund for American Studies. February 6th is also Ronald Reagan's birthday. And we don't know whether the Edison family's attorneys were aware of that or not. We suspect they were not. Washington, D.C. is, of course, the reigning city in professional baseball. And so whose else's birthday is it today? Babe Ruth, born and raised in Baltimore. This is an appreciation event. And you have heard much appreciation expressed this evening. But I must tell you, over the 4 years in which we have been at this successful effort to achieve these fundraising goals, it has been the cliche of a journey of 1,000 steps begins with one, or 1,000 miles begins with one. There has been much that has been done, thought, rethought, but it has been a product of teamwork, and it has been a product of the left hand and the right hand finding each other in collaboration to support the fundamental values of this organization. Liberty, more than anything else, is the fundamental value that underlies what we do in all of our programs, whether it's called liberty or freedom or other expressions as well, that people should have the right to do what they should do in their own private and civil lives without the dominance and governance and oppression of government itself. So that's the value we try to extend. And the appreciations that are necessary in an organization like this that has achieved this, the leadership that emerges has been discussed this evening, but I wish to add to that. And that is that Charlie Black, a member of our Board of Trustees who was the leader during the silent phase of the campaign, Eric Tenenblatt in Atlanta, who was the leader for the public phase of the campaign, were critically important people that brought together and held together over so many days and nights what was necessary to achieve the results for this purpose, not to raise the money. It's one thing to raise money, funds, because it enables. But what does it enable? It enables our ability to give scholarships to students that cannot afford to come to this city or Prague, Hong Kong/Singapore perhaps this year, Santiago. We used to have a program in Greece. But without this kind of funding support and the infrastructure within the fund that is created by these dollars, these programs would not happen. these students would not be able to attend the programs and have lifelong and career-long relationships with one another. So that is what your work, every single one of you sitting here today, has been able to accomplish, is accomplishing, and will accomplish in the future, if I can use all three tenses there to express that chronology. So it is my pleasure to thank Charlie, it is my pleasure to thank Eric for the work that they have undertaken, to thank all of the trustees, regents, donors, students, alumni for what you have done. Roger's coming forward now because we have some tokens, and they're just that, they are tokens of our appreciation, so that this will be remembered over a longer period of time. So Charlie and Eric, if you can come forward. Thank you. Thank you.
So as we close out the evening, I want to personally express my gratitude to everyone here tonight. Our Liberty and Leadership 50th Anniversary campaign was the largest fundraising undertaking, as you've heard, at the Fund for American Studies in our history. And without our supporters, some of whom are here in this room, we would not have been able to accomplish this lofty goal. We've heard this evening from just a few people whose lives were impacted by the campaign, but we also know that there have been hundreds more lives impacted in not just the last 2 years, but there are thousands more that are going to be impacted in the future. And I can tell you, I know firsthand that TFAS can have the impact that it can have on a student's life. In 1987, I attended the Institute on Comparative Political and Economic Systems. It inspired me when I returned to Emory for my senior year to volunteer on then Vice President George H.W. Bush's campaign for president. Since then, I've served as a senior advisor to a U.S. Senator, chief of staff to a governor, and in the administrations of 3 U.S. presidents. And I'm now the head of the public policy and regulation practice at the world's largest law firm. It was TFAS that lit the spark in me, igniting a passion for policy, politics, and government, and I will forever be grateful. And I was honored when I was asked to chair the Liberty and Leadership campaign as a way to give back to the organization that has meant so much to me. As we have heard, the campaign allowed us to launch new scholarship initiative for our summer programs, expand our education offerings for young professionals, introduce new on-campus programs, and reach thousands more students with our transformational programs. Our Liberty and Leadership campaign celebrated 50 years of TFAS history, educating students on the importance of our founding principles like free speech, free markets, and civil discourse. But more importantly, it helps to ensure that the next 50 years of TFAS, teaching people about those important ideals, lessons, that they will take with them for the rest of their lives. I'm grateful to be able to say that we have, as we've already said, we've surpassed our goal because of thousands of our supporters and alumni who made investments in the campaign. And for those that are here this evening, we're grateful for your support. I'm also happy to say that a number of our significant investors in the campaign have joined us this evening. And I'd like to present each of them with a small token in recognition of our immense gratitude for their investment. So as I call your name, if you'll please join me up here on the stage, and if we can all celebrate the following supporters. Fred Barnes. Jeff Corneal. Jeff. Jim Culbertson. John Lee. Freda Levy. Paul McDonough. Bob Pruger. Clarice Smith, on behalf of the John William Polk Foundation. David Stover, Jerry Sullivan, Randy Teague, and Chris Ullman. I did. I think we're going to all gather and take a photo here, but I hope each of you, after we conclude here, will join me outside at a reception to celebrate the success of the campaign and toast to the next 50 years of the Fund for American Studies. So thank you all for being here.
And that's all for the program, but the bar is now open.